Hello and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. I hope everyone around you is doing well. And lots of things happening again this week. As you might imagine, quite a lot of the news this week is still focused around kind of the COVID-19 response stuff. But there is some other stuff happening as well. So let's get into it. First thing, blog post that Microsoft put out on the Tech Community site, and it's sort of tangentially related to the COVID-19 stuff, but really this was happening anyway. As you can tell, this is obviously not a knee-jerk response. There's some real effort gone into this, and this is focusing efforts on Teams as a tool for healthcare. So it's new capabilities coming into Teams specifically for healthcare, and there's two sort of very specific things. The first is the ability to schedule and conduct visits virtually with the Bookings app in Microsoft Teams, and the second one is targeted communications, being able to sort of create tags of people and message them all in a kind of group. So, for instance, like at nurses or at on-call shift staff or at porters or whatever it is, orderlies I think is the US term, and that will kind of blanket reach all those people all at once. So both of those are kind of high, they've been real asks from the healthcare community. It's good to see them coming into Teams. It's going to be interesting to see whether they are capabilities that everybody can use or whether they're somehow kind of limited to if Microsoft knows that your tenant is a sort of healthcare enthused tenant. Because actually I could see both of these being really useful in other verticals as well. Just a kind of a disclaimer, my employer Modality have got a shout out on this blog post because we're doing a lot of work around the virtual visit space, doing a lot of work with the Booking app in Teams, doing a lot of work with our own sort of consultation solutions. So we've got a link back from Microsoft being called out as a partner in this space, which is nice. Okay, so other news, other things that are happening. The big one this week, not really a surprising piece of news, but a big piece of news anyway, is that Build 2020 has become a virtual event. So in-person Build this year normally happens around mid-May, happens in Seattle, is not going to be an in-person event this year. It's going to be a virtual event. I think for many of us that's not a surprise. It was just when it was going to get announced. That's a kind of continuing knock-on effect, I guess. So the MVP Summit, I've already spoken about this. The MVP Summit is also going to be a virtual event. That happens next week. So that's what I'm doing next week. I'm going to be virtually attending the MVP Summit. What does that mean? So I can't go into loads and loads of detail because it's an NDA event. But it means that for me, I shall be sort of living a US time zone for a bit. Microsoft they've gone to real effort actually, to be fair, to make an event that is inclusive across all time zones. So although I'm doing some slightly odd hours, they're not entirely antisocial. It is just a bit of extra hours in the evening, so that's been really good. They've been very flexible about how they're offering the content, so I'm hopeful and excited that it will be as useful as usual. Like, I will miss out on the networking. That's a really important part of anything like this. I will miss out on the hallway track, the ability to go and talk directly to some key people. But I'm hopeful that it'll still be a very useful event, and I'm sure I will still get an awful lot out of it. So that's what I'm doing next week. So I guess something similar will happen for Build. There's more details coming soon on that. So if you have tickets already, I imagine you already have some targeted communications around exactly what's happening there. All right, another COVID one. Really, well, it sort of is and it isn't. This is a really good blog post, actually. It's Microsoft are finding the real key people in their own organisation that have worked through the kind of problems that every other organisation is just about to hit with. Lots of organisations are not as progressive as Microsoft when it comes to flexible working and working from home, and they're only now they're trying to scramble basically, to become a working from home organisation in short order because suddenly they have to. So for large organisations, that's a real issue. So this is a really good blog post by Natalie Dehaes, who she's part of CSEO. So that's Microsoft's core service engineering and operations department. So it's the internal IT team. It's the system, it's the team that runs Microsoft. It's Microsoft's internal IT. So they know an awful lot about this stuff. And so Natalie's gone through top kind of 9 things that IT leaders need to consider if you're a big organisation and you want to do this stuff. So some of it is technical, things like MFA, managing devices. Some of it is softer, so it's cultural change management stuff. So really interesting read. I found it interesting. I think if you're one of these, it's been really funny to me talking to friends who are not IT people, don't work for IT companies, and up until now have always worked for companies that can't possibly work from home. And I've had this argument with lots of people, we can't possibly do working from home, it just wouldn't work for reason A, reason B, reason C. And now suddenly these companies are becoming working from home companies because suddenly they have to consider it. So that's a real change shift. It'll be really interesting to see, if we have to work at home for, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. 6 weeks is how long it takes for, change to become a habit. It'll be really interesting to see if we ever go back to the way we were. All these companies that said they couldn't possibly work from home actually might find out that it's not as bad as they thought it was. So I'm interested for that. Anyway, finally, one more blog post to stop me from waffling on about working from home, because I could talk about that forever. New blog post I literally just put out now whilst I was trying to compile the information for this video. I came across this and I thought, this is too good not to blog. So I kind of did a blog post quickly and now I can talk about it. And that is that checklists and polls are soon coming to Microsoft Teams. So 2 new messaging extensions that Microsoft are building are coming. What does that mean? So messaging extensions are the things, when you compose a message, they're the things at the bottom that you can click on where you do your images and your GIFs. Microsoft are putting 2 of their own. I forgot that fan was going to come on. I might just go and turn it off actually. So messaging and polls, 2 new extensions. There we go. 2 new extensions coming to Microsoft Teams. And this is kind of interesting because at least one of these polls, is already well serviced by a third-party company, Poly. So kind of an interesting choice. It'll be interesting to see whether these 2 messaging extensions are rolled out by default and are available to everyone by default or not, or whether they're just things that you can get in the store. I think we'll just have to see on that and see how that rollout comes. But it's what the takeaway I took, the reason I wrote the blog post really, is that I think it's really good to see Microsoft using the same tooling and the same extension points that everybody else has to extend out the product in the way that they think it should be extended. Both of these checklists and polls are not being delivered by some magic secret sauce, internal hooks or whatever. It's using the same messaging extensions that everybody else has access to. So I think that's really good to see. So I thought that was really cool. All right, I think that's everything from me. Like I say, MVP Summit next week. So probably going to be fairly heads down on that. And I doubt there's going to be much that comes out of that I can talk about, but I'll try and do like a wrap up of just like how it went as a virtual event next week. But in the meantime, I hope you have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. If you're working from home for the first time, there's loads of resources for you. So and if you have any specific questions about working from home as someone who's done it for getting on for 8 years now, 9 years I think, feel free to kind of ping me and ask any questions. All right, thanks very much. Have a great weekend. I will see you again next time.